Podcast. I'm Ed.
And I'm Brooke.
Before we get into things, I just wanted to say, like always, a quick spoiler warning. We will be connecting dots from the entire series, and if you're watching Supernatural for the first time and have not finished the series, do so before listening to the podcast. Otherwise, you will get a lot of spoilers. And also, just another warning, an explicit warning. We are adults talking about an adult show with deals with dark and sensitive topics, so expect adult language, mature discussions, and dark humor.
All right. So I just want to give a little recap for last week, changing up.
Just like they do at the beginning of this episode of the series.
Yes, we're trying out formats to see how the flow works. So,
Yeah, so give us feedback, please. In the comments and everywhere you can tell us feedback, please.
yeah. All right. So last week we followed the brothers through the city of Jericho, California, where they stopped the vengeful spirit from terrorizing the men in town. While working through this case, they found a note from their dad saying to go to coordinates 3511. After Sam's girlfriend died in the same way his mother did, he decided to drop out of college and skip town and head to Blackwater Ridge, Colorado to hunt with his brother and get revenge for Jess. Which brings us to this week, opening up the archives. We are hiking into the wilderness to watch the boys face a Wendigo. They are hoping to find their dad, but of course, there's trouble around and they can't just find him. They find out people go missing in these woods every 23 years, and they're roped into helping Haley and her crew find her missing brother. So, overall, before we dive into the small details, what did you think about the episode? Anything like stand out?
As like the first episode, I kind of have similar feelings on like the way they establish the relationship between the brothers. I really like the way they do that in the first couple episodes, where it's like that's the focus. Like the monsters
Hmm.
are there, but they're not like the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
They're like background almost for like the brother drama, which is like good because that's how the whole series is kind of goes going forward and just setting up that dynamic. So I think
Hmm.
that was cool. I definitely like this one. I think in terms of like the monster plot, I like it a lot more than the first episode. First episode
Yeah.
seems like very like again, it's the background thing. It's not really the main point. So it's just like
Hmm.
kind of like, oh, here's the problem. Oh, it gets resolved very quickly. Granted, this one does too, but this one feels a lot more like, oh, they're actually kind of in danger and like it's a little bit
Hmm.
more harrowing than the first one. I felt like, which I thought was good. Like kind of raising those stakes a little.
Yeah, I agree with you. The stakes are definitely raised when you think of like the monsters coming back every 23 years. So it's like, how do they stop it from continuing the cycle? Which is also a big theme we see throughout the series.
Which is also a thing that, like, bothers me just a little bit just because 'cause I'm the lore guy, right? The
Hmm.
23 years for the Wendigo thing just doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Yeah,
Like, they don't work on a cycle as far as I could find out, so I thought that was a
maybe.
little odd to choose, and, like, except for, like, just, like, the whole dramatic, "Oh, it's every 23 years," like, the mystery, what's happening? Like, to add a little more intrigue, I guess, but
Hmm. The only other thing I can think of is maybe this Wendigo, this one, is very good at um like saving its food.
fair. Only needs food every 23 years, I guess. It's just oddly specific,
No, it
you
really
know?
is.
For a creature that doesn't really care about that normally.
Mhm.
But
This episode also gives a very like 80s horror film vibe. It's
yeah,
very
I can see that.
campy and not in the fact that they're camping. um,
I was about to make that exact joke.
but no, it reminds me a lot of like Friday the 13th without Jason. But
Yeah, I can see that.
mhm, the next episode that we're not talking about is also Jason vibes because of the lake. But anyway, yeah, we'll dig into more of these details, but overall, I thought this was a good episode, especially a good episode 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm ready to talk about the rest. Before we dive into the small details, we just wanted to let you know you can listen to us on all major podcast platforms and watch along on YouTube. If you want to support the show, you can head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/Winchester Archives Podcast. There are a ton of perks from our Discord community to monthly digital art that one of our good friends is making for us every month. And bonus episodes titled the Archive Addendum, which these are going to be episodes for our two highest tiers. We don't have a frequency set yet, at least once a month because it's a Patreon perk, but it might be more than that. We're not going to make any promises yet. But basically, these episodes are going to have a deeper dive into lore and mythology. It could be about monsters on the show, it could be about something different. Basically, Ed here is running the reins on this. We're kind of going to be switching roles. He's going to be talking a lot more, and I'll be there for the reactions. And we
Yeah,
are,
much more my realm of things.
yes, it is. And then we are always accepting stories for our field research episodes. And this is where we share stories written in by our listeners. So if you have hometown legends, ghost hunting stories, cryptid encounters, it really anything supernatural that has happened in your life, send them our way at winchesterarchivespodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that these episodes are open to all listeners on our main podcast feed. We're still working on the frequency of this one too. Like we said, we're trying to figure out the formats. We're trying to figure out the flow of things. Since it's a new project of ours, so we're excited to do it, but we gotta find time to commit in between that and also all the
Mhm.
other stuff that we have going on too. So bear with us on that until we kind of figure it all out, figure out the flow.
Mhm.
But we're also thinking bi-monthly for this one as well. But we do need stories to get started. And you know that people have some weird things going on in their lives. So if you have any fun stories, feel free to send them over to us. You can also message us on anything else like Discord if you're are part of that, or like on our Instagram or TikTok. It's a Winchester Archives Pod on those platforms as well. Just message us about your stories, and maybe we'll get you on an episode here.
Yes, I'm very excited to start getting those in. I know
Yeah,
people have a lot of stories to
I know
tell.
we have some too, so we can always bring some of ours in too. It'll be fun.
Yes, exactly. All right. So let's get into the small details of this episode. So starting
Let's do it. The Wendigo, as they say in the show.
I hate that.
Again, drives me nuts.
Yeah, I hate that they pronounce it that way. Um
Wendigo.
so we're starting with our episode specs. This aired on September 30th, 2005. It was written by Eric Kripke, Ron Milbauer, and Terry Hughes Burton. And it was directed by David Nutter. And our supporting cast slash monster of the week is the Colorado Wendigo, played by Roy Campbell. We call this episode 2, but in the TV world, they'd call it episode 1, just because the pilot is not counted as an episode.
Which drives me nuts.
It's really just used to get on a network. Most of the time, you can watch episode 2 without watching episode 1, and you can kind of know what's going on.
Which
Um,
also kind of explains why they did, like, the longer recap at the beginning, I feel like. I know they do that in general to highlight the main points of the season, which I really appreciate, especially later on, where they bring up things that came back in earlier episodes,
mhm.
where, like, you might have forgotten that small detail, and they, like, magnify it and show, like, "No, this is going to be relevant this episode," which I think
Yes.
is cool. But also that might be why they did the longer recap for this one too, because of that. It
Yeah, the recap was so long.
was like a good 5-minute recap.
Yes. Um, and they found out 4 months later the show got picked up by a network. So they had a 4-month gap between filming the pilot and this episode. And in
Wow.
those 4 months, they found out they were filming in Vancouver. And if you remember, the first episode was filmed in LA. So, and that's where they lived. So they had to basically,
Good distance.
yeah, they had to pick up and move to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Um, and then the boys had to start boxing classes to make their fight scenes more realistic.
I mean, that makes sense, and that's good too, because that way they can do some of their own scenes too to make it actually like look real,
Yeah.
not have to rely on like stunt actors and things like that as much. I'm sure they do, but like I feel like this show they do a lot more of like just them kind of hustling.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like you can tell when somebody is just doing choreography versus actually knowing what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean it is
Um,
choreography, but definitely like that's why
mhm,
like another thing I like a lot pro wrestling and things like that. Those kind of things are even though it's like again like you're acting, but it's
mhm,
still you got to make it look like it's real.
mhm.
So, but learning how to fight for real helps do that. Helps fake it.
Yes, exactly. And outside of their fighting scenes, this is when Jensen and Jared were told that the success of the show is their relationship on and off the screen. The
Yeah.
writer and director had told them they can write all the epic fighting scenes and they would be so cool, but their chemistry is what is most important. And good thing for them, they became really quick, good friends.
Yeah. And also it's very evident, even like this episode, like I said before, the showing the dynamics between the characters and the brothers is
Hmm.
like the main thing kind of right now. And I think they nail showing that relationship very well.
Yeah, I think so too.
Even from such an early on, like start of their friendship on and off screen, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and if you ever watch interviews with them, you can tell they are good friends. Um,
Yeah.
so now let's get into our episode overview. This is the first episode to have a monster, because the pilot had a spirit. Um, so I think this was set up to show how versatile the show is going to be.
Even though technically a Wendigo is also technically another human that you turn into something later, similar to a spirit.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing, but I get your point. It definitely is much more monster, especially like the depiction of it in this. They
Hmm.
made it look like a gremlin. Like it looks like from straight out of the Descent.
It
Like it looks
does.
almost identical to those blind goblin guys in the Descent.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It's not pretty.
Which is again why they kept him mostly in the dark. Which I get budget reasons, but also like
Hmm.
if you didn't they said like the makeup didn't go as planned as well as they'd like it to look. So
Hmm.
that instead of like having to redo all that, spend more budget on more of that, doing that again, they just kind of like, let's hide it in the darkness as much as we can. Which
Yeah.
smart filmmaking. But also like in terms of like lore and stuff, eh.
Yeah. Eric Kripke did not like how the makeup turned out because he also likes practical effects versus digital. So
I'm in.
they tried really hard, and the glimpse we get of the Wendigo's face, not great. Sorry to Roy Cancel. I'm sure he looks great, but the Wendigo did not.
Yeah, the makeup. It's like I said, it doesn't look that like intimidating in my opinion, or like
Mm-hmm.
that, especially compared to like later seasons where they get like more, obviously more budget
Yes.
and kind of have an idea of how they want things to look. The monsters and the characters, like the demons and all that kind of stuff, look a lot more menacing, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
So like you can see the evolution. It's definitely early on in the series, right? So you got to give them
Mm-hmm.
some grace because this is like, hey, episode one, technically. That'd
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I can do some digging and add in the episode budgets to my episode specs.
be fun.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I can find that info.
Yeah.
But anyway, we are now in Blackwater Ridge, Lost Creek, Colorado. So Lost Creek is the town, Blackwater Ridge is the forest. Blackwater Ridge is not a real thing, but Lost Creek is. So that really bothers me, knowing that the coordinates are somewhere in Arizona.
Again, look at a map, please. Do a Google search, please.
Yeah, like they could have just
Just
put in the coordinates for Lost Creek.
yeah, like how hard was like to be fair, again, like just give them a little bit of grace, just play devil's advocate there.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said, it was a pilot. They didn't even know that they were going to get picked up. They probably didn't even think
Mm-hmm.
about it that hard.
Yeah.
But in terms of like us, where we get to go and be hyper analytical of things in retrospect, it's annoying.
Yeah, they definitely could have had like the 3511 part in the pilot. And then when they were going to get picked up by a network, they could have went back and like did a reshoot to be like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
now we're going to Colorado to find dad or something.
But
I
also,
don't know
in the
for
grand scheme of
sure.
things, it doesn't really matter, so I don't think that's why they wanted to redo it, because it doesn't matter, right, to the actual, like,
No,
plot of the show. Um, but yeah,
it doesn't matter. It's just it's just a
like I
little
said, for us,
detail.
for people like us, it's annoying.
Mhm. So this episode, we actually start out with the POV of the victims, not the brothers. So we go into the woods. There are people camping in tents. We find out one of them is named Tommy and he's reading a book, and it's called The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. This is a real book. And I found out that it's not just some random prop they put in here. This is actually in here for foreshadowing, as the book is a famous book that explores the idea of a hero's journey and that narrative platform that's found basically in every myth and legend and really like any fantasy dystopian story you can
It's
find.
literally the story of humanity, like, it
Yeah.
is what we do as humans, as a species, that's what we do, is we write hero's journey stories a
Mhm.
lot. Like, every culture, every myth, every story is, like, a variation on the hero's myth or on the hero's journey.
Yes. So basically, the cycle is somebody leaves home, they face trials, they have their transformation, and then they return changed. I think a big one we can think about is like Hercules,
Yeah.
specifically Disney's portrayal of Hercules, because at the end, he doesn't want to be a god because he wants to stay with Meg. So, but he does return changed after he goes through his trials and transformation and stuff. The same thing happens in Supernatural, specifically with Sam. Dean goes
Yeah.
through this, but not as much as Sam does, at
Yeah.
least in this first arc of the show.
For sure. It's very clearly, Sam right now is, like, the main person
Mhm.
because that's who we went into initially in the first pilot episode
Mhm.
of them focusing on his story and his journey from being trying to be a normal person and then getting sucked into this and having to go through the trials and then, like, learn and grow, and right in this episode, it talks a lot about, like,
Mhm.
he's not okay, and he has to work through those emotions and get better,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And get stronger, get everything, right? To work through all that stuff, which is very hero's journey.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think it's really cool how they put that book in there. Um,
Yeah. I love subtle things like that.
yes, because people who know the book would be like, "Oh, that's cool." But somebody like me, I didn't know that existed. I honestly would have never looked into it unless I started this podcast. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't a thing that I would have ever thought to do.
Yeah, it's just a small Easter egg for those in the know kinda thing.
Mhm. So we start hearing growls outside of the tent, and they're like making comments about like what could be out there, but they don't really care because they're out in the wilderness. It could be a million things out there. And then they zoom in on a Nintendo DS. So while Tommy is reading, his two friends, Brad and Gary, are playing the Nintendo DS. And it's a first person shooter game. And they like are saying that they're cheating. Like that's kind of the banter they're having. But the video game they're playing is Metroid The First Hunt demo. The
Mhm.
the full game came out in March 2006, and we know this episode came out in September 2005. So they didn't have the full game. I wanted to know more because I was like, was this product placement? Did somebody on the production team know a friend, a friend, a friend, and get a copy for the show? Like, what transpired? I found out that the demo of this game was bundled with the release of the Nintendo DS in late 2004. So when it came out, they were like, "Hey, if you buy the DS in this bundle deal, you'll get a demo of this cool game that'll be out in 2 years."
Mhm.
So, what most likely happened is somebody just bought it. I
Yeah.
don't know for sure. I wasn't able to confirm that. But
And more than likely, it was just like a, "Hey, we need them to be doing something, what can we do?" "Oh, I have this," like, the actor might have just had the DS, you know?
yeah.
Could have been anything, or but it doesn't seem very product placement-y.
No, I don't think it is. I think they just needed something there.
It was back in the glory days of TV before everything had to be a product placement if you saw it on a show.
Yes, that's so true. So then we see Tommy sending his sister a video message, and he's basically just saying everything is okay. And it's just a check-in.
Mhm.
But this is like our first continuity error of the
Dun, dun,
episode.
dun.
There aren't very many in this episode, but this is our
Good job.
first
Good
one.
job, team.
Yeah. So what he says changes later in the episode, and I'm gonna tell you all what it is. So when we see him filming it in his POV, he's holding up the camera and he says, "Hey, Haley, day 6. We're still out near Blackwater Ridge. We're fine, keeping safe. So don't worry. Talk to you tomorrow." And when,
Pretty standard.
yeah, exactly. And when Sam and Dean meet Haley later, she shows them the recording. And in that, when she plays it back, he says, "Hey, Haley, day 6. We're still out near Blackwater Ridge. We're fine, keeping safe. So don't worry, okay? Talk to you tomorrow."
I think it's hilarious that it's just it's clearly just like another take,
Yeah.
and they left the okay and on one and forgotten on the other, which is hilarious. But like again, I never would have noticed that until we started this podcast where we're overanalyzing everything because like
Mhm.
it's so subtle.
It is. Yeah, exactly. I didn't notice it, however many times I've watched this series. Never thought about it.
Yeah,
So, Brad, he says, "Hey, nature is calling," as in he has to go to the bathroom. But my note is, "Nature is growling. Why are you going
yeah,
outside?"
yeah, exactly. Well, if you're hearing this growling outside your tent, why are you going outside at all?
Like, if you
Find a bottle.
I was just about to say that if you had to pee so bad, pee in the tent, pee in something else that's not
Yeah,
going outside. Okay, but it doesn't matter.
or like open the door and then just like do your business like right there.
Yeah,
Like just barely open the door. Like don't even open the flap all the way.
men have options.
Yeah.
You didn't need to go out. Anyway, he did, and he died while peeing.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Uh, you go outside when the nature is growling at you because you gotta pee, you're gonna die peeing probably. Get mauled by
Mhm.
whatever's out there.
Um, so then we see Tommy and Gary get snatched. We don't know what happened to them, but they get snatched up. We can assume that they died, like Brad.
R.I.P.
Yes. And fun fact here, actually, I'm gonna save this fun fact for later. Wh-
All right.
yeah, because I feel like it'll make more sense at the end of the episode. But another fun fact I have is Corey Monteith plays Gary, and he's very sadly no longer with us. But he's a great actor. He was on Glee. I loved that show, so it was just a fun callback seeing him in this because I immediately was like, "Oh, I know that guy." But the first time or the past several times I've watched the show, I never really caught that.
Yeah, it's always fun to see actors in other things.
Mhm.
I do that a lot with specifically Sam and Dean. Like whenever I see them on in any other shows, I'm like immediately like, "Hey, it's Sam or Dean."
Right? Like when you watch The Boys or
Yeah, or like what is the one? Uh it's like the Valentine's Day one. The one that's in the mine. My Bloody
oh, yeah, My
Valentine,
Bloody
the remake
Valentine.
with Sam as in as one of the
No,
lead
it's
characters, right?
Jensen.
Yeah.
Um, Jared is in House of Wax.
That's what I was thinking of. Yes, I was thinking of
Mhm.
Jared and House of Wax. It was Jensen is in My Bloody Valentine then. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so then
But yeah, I love just seeing them around.
me too. But then we change to the boys' POV, and Sam is at Jess's funeral. And when I first watched this, I was like, "Sam, you are on the run from the law right now. Why are you at her funeral?"
You are definitely subject or like a suspect number 1. Like
Right. The boyfriend, the husband, by default, is always suspect number one, and he left town.
yeah, he skipped town immediately.
Yeah. So I was like, "Why are you here?" And then we find out it is a dream, and it's a Carrie dream because her hand comes up through the grave.
Yeah, quite literally a direct callback, like call out to Carrie. Like there's no other way you
Mhm.
can look at that other than a direct call out to Carrie.
Right. Exactly. So basically the recap here was Sam was to attend an interview on Monday for law school at the end of season 1 episode 1, which was 10 hours away when Jess was murdered, which makes that a Sunday night. And then in
Mhm.
season 1 episode 2, this one, we see her tombstone says January 24th, 1984 through November 2nd, 2005. which is correct if they're following the timeline because Friday was Halloween, which was the 31st, and that's when Dean came to get Sam, and they came back Sunday, which would have been November 2nd. But in real time life, the November 2nd was a Wednesday, not a Sunday. So they,
Second small continuity error then.
yes. Oh my God, the cat. He's making an appearance on the video. He has decided it's time to be here. He won't move. I've tried to move him, and he's like refusing. But anyway, that is the second continuity error. However, it's like weird because, like I said, it's not a continuity error in their writing. They kept that actually continuous. It's a continuity error in the way they didn't look at a real calendar.
Yeah. Similar. Google is your friend.
Yes. Like I know they wanted Halloween to be Friday and they wanted it to go into the weekend.
Mm.
You should have picked a different starting year, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
A lot of people have their Halloween parties the weekend after Halloween. It didn't have to be that day exactly. I'm just saying.
Yeah. It's again one of those things where I'm sure they didn't care. Like it doesn't matter at the grand scheme of things, but
Hmm.
still fun to point out.
People like doing this with Halloween. It happens in a Harry Potter book, and another show I listened to had a lengthy conversation about how Halloween was not on a Saturday, but it was written in the book as a Saturday. It's just like
Yeah.
things people
It's because
do.
Halloween is creepy. It's supernatural in and of itself.
Hmm.
So perfect day to start a supernatural TV show. Like it just like
Yeah.
it fits. So I get it. But yeah, it's one of those things where
Hmm.
it's like why can't anyone look at a calendar? This happens in a lot of shows and a lot of movies and stuff like that that do that. Where
Yeah.
it's just like slightly off by like a couple days, and you're just like, guys, come on. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Another thing to point out is that Jess's birthday is the same birthday as Dean's.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
Not the same year because Dean is older than her, but it is the same date, like January 24th. So we know from Endgame, well, it's not really even Endgame, it's end of this arc, which is like
Yeah.
season 4, 5-ish, that Yellow Eyes slash Azazel, I think that's
Mm.
the right
I think
demon,
it's Azazel. Pretty sure it's Azazel. That sounds right.
is the demon that was with Sam over his crib in the beginning, and that's the demon that killed his mom. It's the demon that killed Jess, and his reasoning is he wanted Sam back hunting again, which is kind of strange, but he was also feeding Sam demon blood. It's a whole thing. We'll get to it when we get to it, right? But
Yeah.
it kind of it made me wonder if they picked that date intentionally for her birthday to be like Yellow Eyes was orchestrating his whole life. Like he was like, well, I'm going to get you the girl that reminds you of your brother because they have the same birthday.
Yeah, that could if your whole plan is to get him to back into hunting and get him into the family business more, reminding
Hmm.
him of his brother is probably a good way to do that. So, like, that's interesting way to look at it. Also, I did just confirm that, yes, Yellow Eyes is Azazel.
I thought so. They
Yeah,
call
I
him,
just wanted to confirm.
well, I appreciate it because they really just call him Yellow Eyes. They don't really call him his demon name
Yeah.
often. So at this point, like Sam is still in his dream, and he like kind of freaks out and wakes up because a zombie hand came out of a grave.
Good jump scare to wake you up out of a dream, yeah.
Yes. And when Sam wakes up, he asks Dean where they are, and Dean says they are entering Grand Junction. Okay, this is our next continuity error. It's like all geographical and like timing. I'm like, guys, please.
Google.
Yes. Grand Junction is in the western part of Colorado, which is all desert. And they are currently driving through a forest, so they are not entering Grand Junction. And then a whole minute later, maybe not even a minute later, they pass a sign that says entering Lost Creek Wilderness. When Grand Junction is like 240 miles away from Lost Creek.
That's a quite a big distance, yeah.
And I know they probably just wanted to put recognizable names in the
Yeah.
dialogue, but it To me, maybe this is just me, but to me, this stuff takes you out of the immersion if you know the geographic. Like, it
Yeah.
takes you out of the story. Like, I don't know. This stuff isn't to me, this isn't hard to get correct.
Yeah, but
Uh,
it's also, again, it's nitpicky stuff where, again, in an episode or at the end of this episode, have you ever thought did you think about that ever again after this
mhm,
one moment? No, you know? Like, so I get the shorthand, but
mhm,
also, yeah, it's just like, what are we doing? We're trying to make this in real
mhm,
life, like, make it like real life.
exactly. So then Dean asks Sam if he wants to drive, and Sam makes a point to say, like, "This is the first time you've ever asked me that."
Mhm.
Um, and I say this was Dean's way of asking Sam what he can do to make things better. Like, he doesn't
Yeah,
know how to ask, "What do you need from me?" But he knows that driving clears his mind. So he's thinking maybe Sam could drive and it will clear his mind.
yeah,
So,
because they aren't, like, emotionally mature enough to, like, have that conversation, and, like, that's kinda,
no.
like, the point, is they, like, grow into that a lot more as they get older, right? 'Cause they're still, like, kids, like, they're young,
Yeah.
right? So, it's one of those things where yeah, I agree with you completely, that it's his way of being like, "Hey, I don't know how to help, but how can I help? Like, what can I do to help
Mhm.
you? Like, this is a thing that helps me, so maybe it'll help you," right? And 'cause
Yeah.
it's like, he loves his car and it's really important to him, so maybe him doing that and, like, offering that up to him is,
Mhm.
like, also shows that he cares, you know? It's a good way of, like, asking if he's okay.
Yeah, exactly. But then Sam's response is he says, "I'm perfectly okay."
If anyone ever says they're perfectly anything, they're probably lying.
Well, and there's no way Sam could be okay. His
No.
girlfriend died right in front of him a day ago?
Burning to the ceiling like his mother, like, which probably brought up like, I know he probably wasn't young or old enough to remember his mom dying that way, but, like,
Mhm.
if there's any kind of, like, just repressed memory of it, that's gonna bring it back.
And, like,
And also just in general, seeing your girlfriend die by burning on the ceiling, kinda horrifying.
"Stop, the cat's making my mic spike." He's, like, rubbing his head on it.
Mhm.
But we know in today's science that babies do carry trauma with them. They might not have
Mhm.
the specific memories, but they do carry the trauma.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he definitely had some kind of like instinctual response to seeing that.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and something to note is we know when Jensen is talking, Dean has a deeper voice. And Dean says he did that because when they were filming the pilot, he had actually not met Jeffrey D. Morgan yet, and he didn't know how he was going to be portraying John. So then when he watched back the pilot and saw like John having the deeper voice and like a more commanding demeanor, he decided he wanted to imitate him because Dean's character idolizes their father. He wants to be his father. So he would purposely make himself more commanding and demanding. Um, but his vocal cords are also like shredded. Like he
Yeah.
only talks deep now.
Makes sense. After doing that for so many years, your voice is gonna get kind of impacted by that. I also
Yeah.
love that as like from an acting perspective, like that's such a
Mhm.
cool, like small detail that he just made the character feel again, they make the world feel a lot more real and connected by just
Mhm.
doing those kind of things, which is like really cool.
When you learn, like, the small things that actors do to their characters, it is, like, so eye-opening. This
I
isn't
love it.
supernatural related, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. So, in Game of Thrones, we have Daenerys Targaryen. Somebody asked Amelia Clark in an interview if she would change anything, like, if she played another royal character like Daenerys, what would she change? And her response was her character would not have good posture. She was like, "I made Daenerys have good posture because I figured she would always stand tall and straight back and, like, to more commanding presence for a woman trying to be a leader." And she was like, "But my back hurt all the time.
Yeah,
I'm
I
never
bet.
doing that again." But it's like once you start, you can't change it. Luckily, Game of Thrones went like half the time Supernatural did.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. So it's just interesting when you hear the little things actors do to make their characters feel more real.
Mhm.
Now we're at a point where Sam says there's nothing in Blackwater Ridge except woods, and he's wondering why their dad even wanted them to go there in the first place.
Mhm.
And then they find out there have been a dozen or more grizzly attacks in the area.
Which doesn't sound right at all.
No, it's not. Because grizzlies aren't even native to Colorado.
Oh, even more not right.
No. The only bears found in that region are American black bears, which are not that aggressive. They're
They just
way,
wanna swipe your food.
yes, they just,
They're like, "Ooh, free food," but they don't wanna, like, eat you.
no, they're scared of us. So somebody is exaggerating, or there's something really unnatural or supernatural happening.
But I'm
Yeah. But they make their way to the park ranger office and they're talking to the park ranger and they're trying to get details on the grizzly attacks. And Sam says they're students from UC Boulder. However, any native would call that out because there they call it CU Boulder. It's Colorado University Boulder, not University of Colorado.
yeah, so, like, if that was actually a park ranger for the area, he'd look at them and like, "Okay, you're lying, so what's up?"
Hmm. Like in Ohio, we have OU, which is Ohio University. And if somebody said they went to UO, I would be like, are you like, if they said like UO, University of Ohio, I'd be like, are you talking about Ohio State University? Because that's OSU. Like, are you like, what college are
Yeah, it
you
just wouldn't
talking
make any
about?
sense.
Yeah, I would need further clarification. But this
Mhm.
park ranger was just like, okay.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But then he's like, "But you're friends with that Haley girl, aren't you?" And Dean looked very confused. And then he just said, "Yup." And then,
Which, I is again, one of those things where it's like, in if you're in real life, it'd be like, that answer's not good enough to, like, be
mhm,
convincing. But in the retrospect, and again, spoiler warning, at the end of the season, we find out the whole story is just God's story, and, like, God is a writer who likes to just, like, give them plot armor. This is a very good example of exactly that, of, somehow the "Yup" working
I do want to say you
to progress the
said
plot.
end of season, and it's actually like end of the whole series.
End of series is what I meant there, yeah, end of series.
It's like 14 or 15 when we find that out. It's very
Yes,
late
it's the very
game.
last season, like, the very last, like, 2 seasons, I think.
Yes. But then the ranger is just like fed up and he's like, the boy's not missing. He'll turn up, which is just like classic small town authority, dismissiveness. Like there's no urgency, only vibes.
Yeah,
Um,
very much like what you said about, it being, like, very campy '80s horror. That's kind of the same
mhm,
thing where it's like the locals like, "Oh, it's fine, nothing's going you can't get me to do anything because no, it's everything's fine. Nothing
mhm.
could go wrong. Not in this small town." You know?
But then there's that one dude outside the gas station that's like, "You're going the wrong way." Except that doesn't
Yeah, "You're
happen
going
in
to die.
but
You're all doomed."
that didn't happen in this episode, but that is also like a trope.
Yeah,
But then like meanwhile, people are just getting eaten in the woods.
casually. Yeah, casually 23 years, people are going missing, but, "Yeah, oh, no, it's nothing. It's fine. It's fine. Nothing. He'll be
You
okay. He has a permit. It's
you
fine."
would think as a park ranger you would know exactly when that 23 years is.
You would hope, because I'm sure people have put that together before the 2 out of town kids did. Like,
Yeah, right.
feels like something everyone would know about and be like, "Oh, there's probably, like, a serial killer out in the woods." Because, like, that's what where my mind jumped to.
Mhm. Yeah, like I wrote here in my notes, this really sets the tone. So like locals aren't looking for monsters and they're not even looking for their missing people. If this guy hasn't shown up in days and there are known bear attacks, because there have already, we find out in like 2 seconds, there have already been 2 attacks since April and we're now in November. So April of this year, there were 2 attacks. And now in November, people are missing again. You would think somebody would take it serious.
You would think, or you'd like to hope anyway.
Well, apparently not. All hope is gone. This park ranger couldn't care less.
That's why they need Sam and Dean to roll into town and save the day.
Yes. Um, and then Dean here rolls a nat 20 on his charisma check. Because all he does is he charms his way into getting the permit Tommy filled out to camp. Because the guy's reason that he's not missing is he says he filled out a permit to camp there for like 7 or 8 days or whatever. So he can't be missing. He filled out the permit. I don't know how those correlate. But that's what he says. So then Dean is like, hey, maybe if you give me that permit, I can take it to his sister and she'll calm down because he had a permit. And then the park ranger is like, here you go. Here's the permit with all of his information on it.
Yeah. And again, it kind of goes along with the theme of him somehow being able to, or him and Sam, but mostly Dean also being able to like charm his way into getting what he wants pretty easily,
Mm-hmm.
like throughout the rest of the series.
I honestly just think this park ranger didn't care.
That too. He clearly does not care about his job very much.
No. So because this permit has all of Tommy's personal information on it, I can assume that's how they know where Haley lives. They just drive over to the house.
Yeah.
And he knocks on the door and he says, hey, I'm a Dean. I'm a park ranger. And I'm trying to look into what's going on. I heard you said your brother was missing, all that stuff. And she asked for his ID, which is smart.
Mhm.
But she's not smart enough to notice that his ID says Samuel Cole on it when he introduced
Yeah.
himself as Dean.
That's yeah. It's very smart to ask for ID, but also very dumb to not read the ID.
Yes, you should read it.
Also, like, why is Sam not using that ID?
I don't know. Dean's picture's on it.
Like,
So,
I know, but if you made a fake ID, just make another one, but like make it to where your name is like Dean something.
right. I don't know. But they're like kind of going back and forth. Haley introduces them to their other brother, Ben, and they're kind of going back and forth of like, well, maybe he didn't have signal. Maybe he's just having too much fun to check in. And Haley explains that he has a satellite phone and a cell phone. So there's
Yeah,
no
so
way.
no way.
And he will always check in, especially on a trip like this. Even if he was having a grand old time, he would still say something by the end of the day.
Mhm.
So she knows when she stops hearing from him altogether, she knows something is wrong.
Yeah.
And then she says she has a crew, including their brother Ben, going out to Blackwater Ridge to look for Tommy. So we all know that means Sam and Dean are going to, but of course they don't tell her that. We just
They just show up.
yeah, we know they're gonna go. But they need to do their classic digging around to see what's going on in the area. So they find out 2 hikers went missing in April, and that disappearances happen in this region every 23 years, basically like clockwork. Though also, I don't know how April and November correlate. They're on 2 opposite ends of the year. But
Yeah.
people go missing every 23 years. Maybe it doesn't matter what time of the year. Oh, the only thing I can think of is that the Wendigo woke up in spring and needed to eat, and then he knew he was going to be going back into hibernation in the winter, so he needed more. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
That's the best thing I can come up with too.
but this is the first time the show introduces like the supernatural pattern of like they need where the hunt's going to be, the time and the location. Like that all that stuff matters just as much as what they're hunting does. And as you said earlier, in real Wendigo lore, that doesn't happen, but they
Yeah.
needed something for the episode, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and Haley had sent them the recording Tommy sent, and they're looking at it and they're like, slow it down. Look at the thing in the back. And you can really see it running so fast. Like it's way,
Yeah, they said there's only a couple of frames, and it's like pulls from one end of the shot to the other end of the shot, which is like means it's going very fast,
yes.
way faster than a bear.
Yeah. Or human.
Yeah,
It's subtle, but it's enough to convince the brothers that it is something, in fact, supernatural and not a hungry bear. And then they find out that the last time, well, not the last time, because this man was old, probably like 2 times ago, this attack happened, that there was a survivor. So they hunt him down and go to talk to him because they need an interview with somebody this has happened to before. And his name is Shaw. And he says he survived a similar bear attack. And at first, he's very reluctant to talk because he says nobody believed him then. So, like, really, what's the point in saying it now?
mm,
And this is really a recurring theme because
it really is.
somebody will say they experienced something scary and no one believes them. And then Sam or Dean are like, try me or tell me, I promise I'll believe you, or I won't
Yeah,
laugh at you, or whatever.
yeah,
And that's all they need. And then the character just like tells them everything.
mhm,
So Shaw adds that the monster was too fast to see. It had a roar like no other animal. It unlocked their cabin door. It did not break in.
which I love that line that he does too, because he just afterwards is just like, "Have you ever heard of a bear that can unlock a door?" But I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, "Ooh, that's a good line."
It
I like
is.
it.
And it dragged his parents into the woods. It did leave him a pretty gnarly scar, but it didn't
Mhm,
kill him. It decided to not drag him into the woods.
which I don't get.
I don't either.
Even in, like, folklore aspect of it, like, a Wendigo doesn't care.
You,
Like,
yeah,
it wouldn't just leave a kid alive.
no.
Like, the only in Wendigo lore, there's actually a story of one of them basically capturing a child, and it wasn't big enough to eat yet, so it didn't have enough fat on him. So instead of just eating him then or, like, letting him go, he kept him imprisoned, like, kinda like what the Wendigo does in this episode, and then basically feeds it until it's fat enough to eat.
Mm-hmm. Like Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah.
This isn't the first time we're going to mention Hansel and Gretel either. Um, but yeah, so overall, Shaw doesn't know why he was spared. Neither do we. But we know this creature then is deliberate in what it
Mhm.
does. It's,
Making choices.
yeah. In the next scene, Dean tells us that ghosts and spirits don't have to unlock doors, they can just go through walls, which is very fair. And then
Mhm.
so Sam says, then they're looking for something corporeal. And then Dean says, corporeal, excuse me, professor. So it's a big word, I
Yeah,
guess.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
It really just shows the banter back and forth between each other too. And then I
Yep.
love that afterwards, Dean's just like, "Okay, so since it's corporeal, I can kill it," and holds up his gun, and I'm like, "That's great." Very
Mm-hmm.
fitting for his character too.
Yes, it really is. And then Dean says it must be a skinwalker or a black dog.
Which not doesn't seem like it'd be a black dog. The black dog myth and lore tends to be like hellhounds, which we'll see later in the
Mm-hmm.
series. But yeah, it's normally not deliberate. It's usually it can be deliberate, but it's more of like a on the wild animal side of things. And
Mm-hmm.
then skinwalkers in folklore are I don't think they're not as like animalistic in the way they kill things either. Because they in skinwalker lore, it's basically they are in Navajo culture, they are basically a person who practices magic,
Mm-hmm.
like those kind of things, and kind of lean into the darker sides of it. They do turn into or disguise themselves as animals, so I'm sure they could like maul someone, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem as fitting.
No, I agree. But
Which again, turns out they were wrong. It is a Wendigo instead.
yeah, it just kind of shows how they have to work through what they're hunting. They're not professionals.
Yeah, they're still figuring it out.
hmm Now we're in the Impala because they're driving to the woods to meet the crew in the morning. And Sam is so angry. Like,
Mhm.
he is a very angry griever.
Yeah,
And I know anger is a step in like the grieving flow of things, but like
for sure.
he is just angry from beginning to end, which like Jess did just die and he was being pulled back into a life he walked away from and he built a whole new life for himself.
Mhm.
So like not only is he grieving Jess's death, he's grieving the life that he wanted.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, but now all he is set on is finding his dad and getting revenge.
Yeah.
Um, so helping Haley and her brother is just like a detour or an obligation he did not sign up for. He thought they were going to find their dad here, and it's seeming like they're not
Yeah.
going to. So he's just like, why are we here? Let's leave.
Mhm.
And this is the first time we see how grief fuels Sam's purpose. And it really isolates him. He doesn't want to open up about it. And he's
Yeah.
not in this hunt for the right reasons,
Mm. Yeah,
which,
he's not here to help people. He's just kind of inconvenienced by being here.
yes. But nonetheless, he gets out of the car with Dean. And Roy asks, "You're park rangers?" And then Dean says, "That's right," with a cheeky little smile. Then
Mhm.
Haley says, "You're out hiking in biker boots and jeans?" And then Dean says, "Well, sweetheart, I don't do shorts."
Which I love. It's just such a like a snarky comment back, but it's so good. He's such good one-liners. Dean does.
hmm Then we leave the brothers' POV and we cut back to the victims because, surprise, Tommy and Brad are still alive. They
Dun
look like
dun dun dun.
they look like they're in a cave and they look like they're very barely hanging on.
Yeah.
We hear growling in the distance and it's getting closer and closer and closer. And poor Brad, he
R.I.P.
he dies. We don't know how he dies. We heard the
Off
sounds.
screen.
Yeah. We hear the sound design and the shadows and we get the idea. It was like ripped apart, devoured, dragged away, all of the above. In my opinion, this is really the classic less is more horror.
Yeah. I
Just
mean, that's what you should do with a lot of like monsters is
mhm,
show not as much of them because the more you show of them, the more familiar you are with them, and the more our brain so you don't have to fill in the gap.
yeah.
That's why like that's why the unknown is the biggest fear because we have to fill in all the gaps with our brain, and our brain likes to jump to conclusions.
Mhm, exactly. Then we go back to the boys' POV and Roy is talking up. He's a big hunter. He doesn't need anybody's help taking down a bear. He doesn't need anybody's help finding Tommy. He's good. The park rangers should just leave. And Dean is like, "Well, what do you hunt?" And he says, "Mostly bears and bucks." And then Dean says, "Did Bambi or Yogi ever hunt you back?"
I love that line too. Again, it shows that he's obsessed with cartoons,
Mm-hmm.
and also just that he will make light of pretty much everything.
Yeah. They're having like competing personalities here.
Yeah, definitely. They're both like that kind of dominant personality where they want to be the one in charge and
Mm-hmm.
leading the group.
And then it's at this point, like Roy turns and like squares up to Dean, and we're like, "Oh my God, they're about to fight." But really, he just slams a stick into the ground and it makes a bear trap go up.
Hmm.
And, um, Dean had no idea that was there. He
Yeah,
was going to get,
he's gonna step in it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And, but then Dean turns around and he's like, "Hey guys, there's a bear trap here."
yeah, I love that.
Trying to like,
Again, his nonchalant play it off.
yeah, exactly. He's trying to play it off like a cat when cats are wrong and they just like lick themselves. That's exactly what Dean was doing.
Mhm.
So they're traveling some more, and Haley is just like, "You aren't rangers, so tell me who you
Clearly.
are." And Sam leaves. He's like, "This isn't my conversation," even though
Mhm.
it is. But anyway, he leaves. And then Dean tells her that they're brothers and they're looking for their dad who might be out here. And then he says, "This is the most honest I've ever been with a woman."
Yikes.
Yeah,
And
that's weird. And
then she immediately was just like, you didn't even bring any provisions." And then the Dean immediately pulls out a big bag of M&Ms. He's like, "I brought provisions."
mhm. If you want to talk about ad placement, this was it.
Yeah.
This is the ad placement.
Also, I just love the Chekhov's M&Ms that eventually become a relevant plot point later.
Hmm.
So good.
Eminem, they learned from their mistake with ET. If you didn't know this, this is more film lore. When ET was being filmed, they asked Eminem if ET's favorite candy can be M&Ms, and they said no. They didn't want their candy in an alien movie because the movie Alien and ET came out in the same year. So we had a scary alien and we had a family friendly alien at the same time, and they were like, "No thanks." So then Reese's made Reese's Pieces, which is literally just M&Ms of a different name.
But with peanut butter in them.
Yeah, that's true. But then Reese's Pieces were like the top hit candy after the movie came out.
Yep.
Um, I loved them. I also like peanut butter M&Ms, okay? But anyway, so now this time, they were like, "Hey, Eminem, can we put you in our TV show?" And they were like, "Yes." Never turn down an ad placement, apparently, no matter what it is.
Mhm.
And then they're just walking and walking, and Dean says to like stop, and he's like, "Hey, do you notice the sound?" And then Sam says, "Not even crickets." It's like very silent.
Yeah, which is like usually means that there's a predator around because pretty much every animal stops making noise, including insects, stop making noise if there's like something dangerous around.
Yeah,
Kind of builds the tension more.
the quiet before the storm type of
Mhm.
thing. But they did find the campsite, and it does look like a bear attacked it. I mean, there's food thrown around and there's slashes in the tent. The only thing to me that doesn't look like a bear attack is all the blood everywhere. Because, like, again, we've already talked about how bears wouldn't really do that, I
Yeah.
guess, unless provoked. But,
Yeah, if you piss it off enough, I guess.
um, but then Dean is walking around looking for more clues, and he sees some drag marks, and then the drag marks just vanish. So he's like, okay, whatever this was attacked the camp, grabbed them, and then started dragging them. And then the drag marks go away. So like they had to like go up in a tree or something. So then he knows it's not a skinwalker or a black dog that could have done this.
Yeah.
Though later, I just thought about this. Later in the series, when we do see the hellhounds, they do drag people. So I think that wasn't a too far off like comparison.
Could be, yeah.
But I don't think they vanish. It's
Yeah. I
very
feel like this
clear.
one is more the intent of they were dragged out and then they like carried or like picked up.
Yeah.
So something like really strong too. Which those
Mhm.
things are, well, they're strong, they're not like that, right? They're gonna keep
Mhm.
dragging, I think it's more animalistic.
Yeah.
Again, leading more to like it being a conscious thing.
Mhm. Then we find Tommy's phone and it's broken. It's in shatters. That thing is not working ever again. And
No kidding.
and Haley is very sad, and Dean is trying to reassure her that he is still alive or could be still alive and is out there. They hear a scream, and it sounds like somebody's screaming for help. So they take off running and they get into this clearing and they realize no one is there. So the monster is something that can mimic voices.
Which is horrifying.
It is. I don't know if you're going to get into this, but I saw in like my research here that Wendigos aren't known for mimicking voices. So it's like a weird inconsistency with the lore again.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
it's one of those things where they're not as yeah, like, it's not really a thing I've heard that being used in terms of more like skinwalkers,
mhm.
being able to mimic their voices, but, like, Wendigo is also, like I've heard of a similar thing where they can kinda make noises like that, but, yeah, usually they're not really, like they don't really trick in that way, they more just, like, go in and take,
Yeah, exactly.
so
So then Dean or Sam, one of them, says, "Everybody back to camp." And I'm like, "The camp that's ripped to shreds? Is that
mhm,
your base camp? The one that was attacked?" Okay, I guess. Okay, but they get back there and all of their gear is gone. All of it, which sucks.
yeah. So more than likely, it was a distraction to get them away so we could take their stuff.
Mhm. Yep. And Sam goes like, "Dean, I need to talk to you." And they walk away from the group and then he's like, "Give me Dad's journal." And he flips instantly to the Wendigo page, which just shows me that he knows this journal like inside and out. Even if
Mhm,
he was studying it the past couple days or if he had to study it throughout his whole childhood, a mix of both,
yeah.
he knew exactly where to look. And he points it out to Dean and says, like, "It's this." And then Dean says Wendigos are in northern Minnesota. Like they would never be that far out west.
Which again is fair according to the lore, because a lot of the lore it's mostly from Algonquin folklore, which is more like up north in northern and eastern the U.S. So like
Mm,
more like Canada and northeastern U.S. and rather than out here in Colorado. Um,
mm-hmm.
so yeah, and it's usually associated with colder weather and winter and like those kind of things in terms of like uh, winter and, like, being out of, like, food and out of things and that
Mm-hmm.
hunger, which eventually caused you to, like, eat a person, and once you do that, you become consumed by that and become a
Mm-hmm.
Wendigo, and the
Mm-hmm.
Wendigos are, like tend to be, like, these large creatures that are very emaciated with, like, skin pulled taut over their bodies, which is, like, not is kinda how these were depicted in the series, not really,
Mm-hmm.
but, yeah, they're very gaunt because of that, and it's normally, again, associated with cold. 'Cause they're usually like their heart and is made of ice, and the only way to kill them is with fire. So, like, it's kinda weird that it's out in the middle of this, like, pretty temperate looking forest.
Yeah, I mean, I know they get snow in like northern Colorado, um, but yeah, no, it didn't look like. I mean, it's November and there wasn't any snow out there at all. So,
Yep,
no, I totally get that. But now Sam says everybody needs to get to safety.
makes sense.
And he ran out there to tell everybody what they were dealing with. It was kind of very on an impulse. And as soon as he went to say we're dealing with a Wendigo, he says when, and then Dean cuts him off,
Mhm.
which is really odd because then they say like it's a good hunter during the day, even better at night. Like they're being very like ambiguous.
Mhm.
And then the next thing we see is Dean drawing symbols in the ground. And he's like, the Wendigo can't cross over these symbols. And it's like, okay, you just told Sam to not say that word. And you haven't told these people what's happening yet.
Yeah.
But now you're just saying the Wendigo can't pass this and to stay inside.
And also, it doesn't make much sense too, because in terms of lore, because like he refers to them as Anasazi symbols, which is no longer really used. It's ancestral Puebloans.
Mhm.
They're a Native American tribe that basically was around the Four Corners region of the U.S. So like Utah, northern Arizona, southeast, western New Mexico, that area, and southwestern Colorado, which the Colorado part makes sense.
Mhm.
But the problem is like uh, basically it's phrase is first of all used derogatory now that what the phrase that he uses in the show,
Mhm.
because it basically from another tribe that basically just meant ancient enemies. So obviously you don't want to be called that, but also it
No.
doesn't make much sense that these symbols would do anything because again he just referenced how they are from the colder climates up north, and then these symbols are from the Colorado area, from like that area, but like they're two separate tribes. So, it's
Mhm.
one of those things where, like, good on them, good on the story, like, the writers for, like, using Native American things to combat a Native American enemy.
Mhm.
But they didn't do enough research to realize that, like, they weren't really connected, so they shouldn't really affect each
Yeah.
other unless you're lumping them all into a bucket, which is obviously, like, not cool, but you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where they probably just didn't think too far into it outside of
Mhm.
that because they're just trying to make a show.
Yeah,
But also, these are the kind of things that we like to pick at, so
exactly. And that is like a good thing to analyze too, because I would have
mhm.
also have never looked into it. I would have taken it for face value, like, yep, those are the
Yeah.
symbols. Now we move to
Also, there
oh,
is not really, like, as far as I could find, anything about Wendigos being stopped by symbols. Like, I know it's, like, a theme throughout Supernatural and a lot of, like,
mhm,
supernatural things, especially, like, demons, which in the lore as well as in the show later,
mhm,
are bound by these symbols, and according to, like, ancient
mhm,
grimoires and, like, things like that, that's how you control demons is by putting them in sigils and using
mhm,
these magical sigils. So it's, like, one of those things where I get the point. They're setting that up as, like, a thing, that these symbols can stop these monsters sometimes if they're
mhm.
supernatural. But in this case, I don't know of any that makes sense. Like, I haven't seen any stories about it, at least, that
Okay.
would do anything to a Wendigo.
Yeah, that would make sense. It, like you said, it just kind of adds a trope to the show.
Yeah.
Now we're entering what I like to call the loving brotherly drama portion of the episode. And this is the part that gets you all in your feels before the monster kills people. So Dean goes up to Sam and says, "You want to tell me what's going on inside that freaky head of yours?" And then Sam just goes, "Dean." And then Dean says, "No, you're not fine."
Yeah, you know that scene was gonna say, "Dean, I'm fine."
Yeah.
But then cuts him off, it's like, "No, you're not."
Then Dean goes on to say he's supposed to be the angry one, and Sam is currently being the angry one. And Sam says he knows Dad's not here, so he doesn't understand why they are here.
Like, "Why did dad send us here?" You know?
hmm And then Dean says the catchphrase for the first time of saving
Mhm,
people, hunting things, the family business.
mhm.
And Sam does not care about the
Yeah,
family business. He's just like, cool. Next, let's go
yeah.
find Dad. And
Mhm,
Dean says he thinks Dad wanted to give them jobs to do to like kind of pick up where he left off. And then he says,
yeah.
Dad gave us a job to do and I'm going to do it.
Mhm.
And Sam is like, good for you. I am not.
Yeah, and that's good again, fits very well in the rest of the series of
hmm
Dean always just that's his job, that's what he does, that's
hmm
what dad wants, that's what I'll do, versus
hmm
Sam being more rebellious and being like, "That's not what I want."
hmm Yes, like Sam wants answers and justice. He wants to find his dad because he knows his dad can help him
Mhm.
find whatever murdered Jessica.
Yeah.
Maybe because like his dad's been looking for 22 years. He hasn't found it yet.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, Sam, he might be better on his own.
Mhm.
Apparently John is not finding it.
Yeah.
And then Dean says you need to have patience and Sam is like, how can you have patience? And Dean says he keeps his patience by knowing he's helping people. Like he's like, my patience is
Yeah.
for them and
Yeah.
killing as many evil sons as bitches that I can. And like to me, this scene is so emotional. Like I actually kind of got like a little teary eyed watching it, which I know
Mhm.
is emotional, like for me to say. But like we
Mhm.
get backstory into the brothers, and to me,
Yep.
it is clear that Dean raised Sam. And as a way older sibling that has, like my sibling and I are 9 years apart. So I also had like a pretty parental role in their life. So like I really understand that. And
Mhm.
Dean makes sure to get on eye level with Sam. He keeps his voice calm. He's not lecturing him. He's trying to comfort him. And it's not
Yeah.
about like the mission. It's keeping Sam grounded because he knows
Mhm.
Sam is flying off the handle. And he's like, we need to
Yeah.
bring you back to reality right now.
Mhm.
So this is like the first major emotional checkpoint in the series. Um, and Dean, we realize Dean didn't just protect Sam physically from hunting, he also protected him emotionally from their father. Dean was
Yeah.
the buffer between Sam and their dad's obsession with what's happening. And now he sees Sam is starting to have the same obsession as their dad, and maybe he can't handle that for
Yeah.
the two people in his life that he's with. He can't have them both obsessing over the same thing.
Yeah.
So he's trying to keep Sam as grounded in reality as possible, which is kind of interesting to think about that their reality is actually hunting monsters.
Hmm.
Completely different reality than what I have. But but yeah, I can see that would be hard to do,
Hmm.
especially when somebody has fresh wounds.
Oh yeah. That's why it's so good.
Hmm. That is the drama for this episode. It has to be cut short because the Wendigo is back at camp. They hear somebody yelling, "Help me," but it sounds very weird.
Yeah, it's like distorted and stuff, which I like. That like little like flavor to it.
Hmm. And then they're like, "Stay inside the circle." And to that, I said, "Yes, stay inside the magic circle. Don't,
Hmm.
I don't care how crazy you think these people are.
Yeah.
If somebody told me to stay inside the magic circle, I probably would be like, I don't know. I'm going
Hmm.
to just trust it."
Yeah.
But poor Roy, he did not trust it. And he ran outside of the circle and got snatched by his head. Just
Yep.
a,
And get his neck broken.
just a yoink.
Yep. Out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. And then they zoom in like on Sam holding Dad's journal, and it has a rosary, which I thought was an interesting detail.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense from a lore perspective. Like in Christian mythology, it's like uh, the rosary beads that is related to like that kind of religion is a protection thing. You do it to pray. You do it to like basically concentrate your mind on that stuff, and it's used as a protection thing. That's why like
Mhm.
in every holy like horror movie, any religious horror movie, they always use the rosary as like a stay away or like the cross kind of thing like that. It's the same kind of symbol of like protection there. So it makes sense, especially
Mhm.
later on in the series when they go a lot more into the Christian mythology world. That that's like the main thing. So of course he would have that.
Mhm.
They hunt demons, it makes sense you'd have a rosary. If I was
Yeah,
hunting demons, I'd probably have a rosary.
true. Then Sam kind of comes to his senses and he's like, "Okay, I'm ready to kill this evil son of a bitch."
Mhm.
And then they open up the journal and finally provide the Wendigo lore drop to the group.
Yeah.
Do you have more of the lore to give? I know we've been kind of talking about it
I mean,
throughout.
yeah, they just the way they describe it is they say it's like from a Native American word, from a Cree word named Witico, close to Wendigo, but basically it means the evil that devours, which is cool. But it's usually about like a harsh winter and cannibalism, and like they reference that eating flesh gives speed, strength, and immortality from cultures all over the world, which like kind of I haven't really seen a lot of a super ton about that. Like I tried to look into it
Mhm.
a little bit more, and it's like, yeah, there is definitely things like that of people eating flesh and like things happening because of that. But it's one thing that I found interesting about that too, because like especially like the speed and strength part, like
Mhm.
that part I never really figured out there. But they said they tend to like hibernate for years at a time and then store their victims until it's hungry, which is not accurate to Wendigo lore because Wendigo lore is all about them be constantly hungry. It's a
Mhm.
constant famine, a constant need to eat.
Mhm.
And basically that being coming all consuming. Like there's also some myths about it being like the more it eats, the larger it grows, but it doesn't actually like fill up. So it's
Mm.
never so it's always emaciated and always hungry because it's just growing in size rather than like getting full.
Okay.
Um, and then like they also mentioned that they guns and knives don't really do anything against it, which is accurate. And they must use fire; they must like burn it, which is a very accurate thing because again the heart is made of ice, so it makes sense
Mm.
that if you set it on
Mhm.
fire, it gets rid of it. And that's usually like the what I was able to find any kind of ways you deal with a Wendigo is burning it or dismembering it and then burning it. So either
Oh.
way, it cause fire need is needed.
And they do both of those in this episode. Like they have the gun in it that makes it explode, and then they set it on fire afterwards.
Well, it's a flare gun, so it just sets it on fire and it burns up.
Oh, I interpreted that as two different things. But Oh, I don't know. Maybe it is all just one thing. But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't like I knew it was made in winter, but I didn't really connect together that like its heart is made of ice and that's why you need the fire.
Well, yeah, they don't mention that in the show at all. It's just that's from outside lore.
No. So after giving this lore drop, they do say that there is a chance Tommy could still be alive because the Wendigo keeps their victims around until winter. And then they say they have to torch it to kill it.
Mm.
Um, then they're walking, they're trying to find where the Wendigo keeps its victims. And they see bloody claw marks on trees and they follow them. And then Sam is like, you know, those were way too easy to follow. So they were led into a trap.
Turns out he was right.
Mm-hmm. They throw, the Wendigo throws Troy on the ground. We realize his neck is broken. He didn't make it. I didn't think he did anyway.
Yeah.
Um, and then they realize they're surrounded by the Wendigo. So it's like running really fast around them. But so they make a run for it. And
Mm.
Sam is very clearly outrunning Ben. And because he's a good guy, he went back and helped him up.
Yeah.
But Dean and Haley get taken by the Wendigo.
Womp womp.
hmm And they're walking around trying to find where Dean and Haley went. And then Ben
And
sees,
boom, out of nowhere, Chekhov's M&Ms.
yes,
Save the day.
Ben sees the M&Ms. And um, Sam says they're better than breadcrumbs, which is a reference to Hansel and Gretel again.
Yeah. Mm.
They're walking through the cave and they're like, where could they be? Um, and I say they rolled a nat one on their stealth check because they are loud and they just fall
Yeah,
through
it's
a
one of those
hole.
things where it's like, again, looking back at it, it's like, yeah, okay, clearly this is a story written by a person who's trying to get to the end of this story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they fall out of the cave into like the perfect place.
Yes,
And the bad guy just happens to not be right there waiting for them or anything. It's just like it's just perfect.
it
And they
is.
somehow don't die from falling like 20 feet through a cave floor onto bones.
No. Yeah, they fall right on skulls. And then Ben screams, and Sam is like, it's okay. And if that were me, I'd be like, that is not okay, actually.
It's like you'd be like, "Shut the fuck up. What are you doing? Why are you yelling?"
Like, what kind of life do you live where falling on skulls is okay?
Yeah.
Not my life. Anyway, they turn around, and Dean and Haley are right there. And then they turn around again, and Tommy is right there.
Very convenient. Very, very plot armory convenient. Deus Ex to everyone.
Yes. And then Dean is walking around and he finds flare guns. He's like, hey, look, there's flare guns.
Perfect. Again, it's one of those things where like this, like obviously with all the references to natural ones, natural 20s, we're into D&D. This is very D&D. Like you
Mm-hmm.
set up a boss fight where it's like, oh, there happens to be a crate of the weapon that you need to kill the thing,
Mm-hmm.
which I found hilarious.
Because Dean was just gonna do like a makeshift bomb and throw it in the cave, wherever
Yeah.
it was. But then when he was snatched, his makeshift bomb dropped, so they didn't have
Yeah.
anything. And then he was like, "Oh, here's some flare guns."
Hmm.
Um, and Dean is like, "Hey, I'm gonna go distract it, and you guys make a run for it." So they're running, and Dean is saying some very funny things. Like he says,
Yes.
"Someone's home for supper," and then he says, "Like, want some white meat, bitch?"
I know. I love that. uh,
But as they're running out, it's actually following Sam, Haley, and Ben. It's not falling for Dean. And Sam says, "Stay behind me," and I say, "Yes, Sam has plot armor. Stay behind him.
hmm
Listen to him." And then we see the Wendigo's face for the first time. And Sam immediately shoots, but he misses. It hits like the cave wall. But it was a little flare, so the Wendigo runs back in. And then Dean ends up shooting it like in the stomach. And it's kind of a pretty cool graphic because it like lights up his whole body when they
Yeah.
shoot. Um, so Dean saves the day. And then we see it burning on the ground. And then it fast forwards to them like telling the cops what was happening. And they were like, it was a huge bear.
It was the biggest bear ever.
Mhm. And you hear a cop saying, oh, we're going to have to go check that out. Like, finally, what have you been doing?
Yeah, about time. Took you 60 years of like consistent 23-year interval murders.
Mhm.
Finally, they're gonna go check for this large bear that everyone is reporting on. That everyone's like, "Hey, all these bear attacks keep happening."
Right? And then both of the boys say they hate camping. And I'm like, that's low key your life, though? Like, you don't have a
Fine.
home.
Yeah, but they aren't out in the woods all the time.
No, but
I feel like there's a difference.
they live out of their car in motels. Uh, It's very similar, especially when they get the bunker. It's like,
But then they have a home
mm,
in the bunker.
it's still kind of camping.
I don't. I would disagree, but
That's fine. But then Sam says, "In the meantime, I'm driving." And Dean tosses him his keys, and Sam gets in the driver's seat. Dean gets in the passenger seat, which is cool. But in the final
it's a very cute ending. Very very
Mhm.
good way. Very tidy callback and very tidy ending to it too.
Yes.
To show that they're making progress.
But in the last scene, they're driving down the road. It's the final shot of the episode, and it's very clear that Sam is in the passenger seat because it's a tall person. They have shaggy hair, and like they have their arms sticking out of the window, and there's a beige jacket.
Another funny continuity error. I like to
Mhm.
think in universe, like, that Dean was like, "Alright, cool, you can drive," and then they get, like, 2 blocks down the road, and he's like, "Alright, you had your time, give me back my car," because that's a very
Mhm.
Dean thing to do, and also it's very, like, funny then to, like, I feel like that'd be perfect way to make that happen.
Yeah, I can see that too. That's my head canon.
But it's definitely a continuity error of they had a shot of them driving in the car with Sam on the side, and they just reused that shot or just they used that shot instead,
Yes,
but
exactly. All right, that wraps up our episode. And now we're into our crime counter. There really wasn't too many crimes, nothing like the pilot episode.
yeah. Nothing too major.
The crime counter I have is three, but two are very debated. One is not. So the one that can't be debated is them impersonating a park ranger because those are city, state, federal employees,
Yeah.
which is all illegal. And then the other two are filing a false police report because they said it was a bear, not a Wendigo, which, like, I don't blame them, but it's
Yeah.
still, nonetheless, it's not true.
Mhm.
And then potentially trespassing because they did not have a permit to be out there. And
And there was a do not enter sign or whatever by the cave.
yes,
But, like, that one's, like, debatable, I feel like more.
yeah. Um, Pretending to be a park ranger is the same thing as pretending to be a federal marshal, which is 3 years in
Wild.
prison.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Those feel like 2 very different levels of lying.
Yes, it does. I thought that was wild too. And then the other two are just 6 to 12 months in county jail or a fine.
Fair.
So they're not getting many years added on to their ever tallying
Mhm.
sentence.
Sentence.
Now, for something new we wanted to throw in, which I'm glad I thought of it at episode 2, and we aren't retroactively doing this for so many episodes. But we want to give episode ratings based off of categories. Um, I say we start with episode 2 because that's one we've been talking about, and then we're going to talk about episode 1 as well.
Okay.
Um, so our first category is story and pacing. So this is where we're thinking about like how tight is the plot? Is it engaging? Is it well structured? And we're rating out of 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. I gave this category a 4.
I also gave this category a 4. I think it's very, very tight plot. It's pretty engaging. I enjoyed it. It never felt like it dragged too much, while still progressed a lot of like the overarching story beats that we're trying to do. And then I thought I liked like again the Chekhov's M&Ms, great, well structured, very good
Mhm.
storytelling. Love that. Love the callback at the very end of like I'm driving. Like it's just they did a lot of good ways to make the whole episode feel like a circle, like a full circle, which I like.
I agree. It's not a 5 for me though, because I do think it was kind of slow in the beginning, and then at the end they really had to make it fast, which is why
Yeah.
everything conveniently happened at the end.
Yeah. That's the part that knocked it off a little bit for me was how just, "Oh, we found the cave. Oh, we fell through the floor. Oh, here hi, everyone. Oh, look, a
Mhm.
flare gun." Like, it was very like, "Okay, let's wrap this up," which is, like, fine, but it's like, eh,
Yeah. Some of that stuff could
took a
have
point
been
off for
like,
me. Dinged it a little bit for me.
yeah, if the like world building didn't take up like 3/4 of the episode, that wouldn't have had to been so rushed. So it's
It's
like,
fine.
meh.
I get the point. But, yeah, that doesn't get a
Mhm.
5 for that.
So the next category is the monster lore, which is more is the creature or lore compelling and clearly explained. I gave it a 3, and I'm going to say I gave it a 3 because while in universe, I do think they did explain it very well. It's not very comparable to outside of supernatural.
Exactly my thought process. Gave it a 3 as well for that exact reason of in the universe, sure, they did a good enough job explaining what it is, why they gotta do this, how it works, etcetera, etcetera. But when obviously I'm the lore guy and like I like this stuff and I know about this stuff, it's not accurate. A lot like part of it is, and that's why I gave it a 3 because it's like it's fairly accurate, but there are some pieces like the symbols and stuff like
Yeah.
that just they didn't make sense, and, like, the whole, like, leaving some people alive for funsies and, like, not even, like, taking them with them, like, it just didn't make sense. Some of the
Mm,
things that happened didn't make sense in terms of actual lore, so and also, like, the location element of it,
mhm.
being kinda weird. So that's why I docked it a few points too.
Yeah, all makes sense to me. The next category is character development, which is do we learn more about the boys and their relationships? I gave it a 5. I talked at length about this
Yeah.
in the episode. So,
I don't think we need to really rehash a ton of it. I also
no.
gave it a 5. I thought they nailed, like, again, pushing the elements forward that need to go for the rest of the series and, like, the main narrative points of the brothers and their relationship. So they did a great job with that. So I gave it a 5 too.
The next category is visuals and direction. So, how strong is the cinematography, effects, the atmosphere? I gave it a 4. What did you rate it?
I gave it a 3. Uh,
Okay.
basically, the quality of it, it seems kinda
Mhm.
like the video quality, that could just be a time thing at the times too. And then, like, some of the lighting and stuff, like, I get why, again, like, they didn't like the way the makeup looked on the Wendigo, but it was very dark. It was very
Mhm.
hard to see what was going on towards the end. So,
Um, I will tell you, and I know this won't impact your rating at all, but the first 4 seasons were filmed on 35 millimeter film, so they have like that dark, grainy, campy
that makes a lot
horror
of
look.
sense.
Mhm. Yeah, that was done on purpose. It was season
Okay,
5, they
fair.
switched to digital, which I also feel like is very intentional because kinda starting season 5, they leave this, like, campy horror element
Yeah,
and go
that
into
makes
other
sense.
stuff. Mhm. But I gave it a 4 because I liked that look. I grew up on, like, the indie horror films.
Mhm,
It just has a special place in my heart, so I really like it.
makes sense.
Um, Next category is emotional impact. Does this leave a strong emotional impression? And I gave this one a 4. I talked a lot about the emotional impressions I get from this episode.
Yeah, I gave it a 3 because I think the elements of it that were emotional and good, and like the character development stuff, great. The rest of the episode didn't really feel very emotional. And the fact that
Mhm.
like everyone survives and it's a happy ending, it's like it's not super emotional, I don't think. It's just kind of like, oh, okay.
Mhm. That makes sense. I forgot. My eyes got wide because I forgot something, but I'll say it when we're done with this. Um, the next category is rewatchability. So it is, would you voluntarily rewatch this episode? I gave it a 3 because if I'm like, hey y'all, let's watch Supernatural today, I'm not going season 1, episode 2. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
I also gave it a 3 for pretty much similar reasons. It's fine. It's a good episode. It's a fun Monster of the Week thing. It's fine.
hmm Yep.
But I wouldn't go out of my way and be like, "This is my favorite, one of my favorite episodes ever." It's just not.
Which is interesting because this episode is a fan favorite. Um,
That is surprising.
And our last category, I called it salt and sass, which is basically describing as, did the episode deliver great banter, tropes, iconic lines, things like that. I gave it a 4 because they do have good banter and we hear their slogan for the first time.
Yeah, I think, we have a very similar thoughts on this episode, at least, because I also gave it a 4, and I also thought, like, I like the one-liners, I like the things like the M&Ms a lot. I liked a lot of, like, the banter between them and
Mhm.
stuff, so I thought it was pretty good.
So now we have like our average scores. So my average rating is a 3.86 out of 5.
And then
And
mine's a 3.57 out of 5, so slightly
mhm.
lower.
Then our combined score is a 3.71 out of 5. So
Mhm.
I feel like with that score, it's a recommended episode. It's over
Yeah,
half.
it's alright. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think that it's about, like, it's like, yeah, this is a good episode. Like, you could watch it and not have really many
hmm
issues with it, and it's just kinda, yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And then the thing I forgot to tell everybody earlier in the episode when I brought up Tommy, and I was like, fun fact. Actually, I'm going to say that later. I thought it would fit in when we mentioned Tommy was alive, and I forgot to say it because I didn't move it down, my note down.
Mhm.
Um, but that's not the last time we see Tommy. He comes back in season 8 and he finds Sam and Dean because he thinks the Wendigo is after him again.
Which is really cool. I love
hmm
callbacks. Callbacks are a big thing for me.
Yeah, me
Excuse me.
too.
Callbacks are a big thing for me, so I think it's really fun to see things like that in later seasons.
Me too, for sure. Okay, let's quickly go over like our pilot ratings.
Mhm.
So for story and pacing, I also gave the pilot a 4.
I also gave it a 4. Do you
Yeah.
wanna dig much deeper into that or just wanna just go?
Um, we could say our whys. Um,
Um,
yeah, you go.
I thought it was a good job. I think the pilot did a great job of, especially the beginning, setting up, the whole season, right?
hmm
You know who the big bad guy is, you know who they're gonna be chasing after, and dad's missing. Like, it just sets up the whole season very
hmm
well. So I thought that was really good. And I liked, again, the callback to, Jess dying, like, mom died at the very beginning, at the beginning and the end. So
hmm
it's like, it's good storytelling. That's what you do.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree with you. That was my reasons for the 4 as well. Now with the monster lore, I gave it a 3.
I also gave it a 3.
It's for the same reasons as
Yeah,
Wendigo.
exactly.
Exactly.
Exact same reasons of some things very accurate. It's really fun to see some of the research that clearly went into it, but then they did take some liberties, especially with the
hmm
ghost, like, basically forcing herself on Sam and
hmm
then being like, "Ha, you cheated." It's like, that's not how that works, and usually in the lore and stuff, that's usually not how those ghosts work either.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I was like, "Yeah, I'll take a couple points off for that."
Character development, I gave it a 5.
Yeah, you gotta give it a 5. It's the beginning of the season, the
hmm
beginning of the series, and also, again, they did a fantastic job of setting up the characters of the brothers and, like, their
hmm
dynamic, their history. They felt like that's one thing that's hard to do in storytelling, is to make a character feel like they have a history in the world, especially in a world that you
hmm
aren't in already,
Yeah.
right? And don't have the context for. We don't have the context of how they grew up. We don't have context for anything, but they were banter and their, like, immediate chemistry is just, like, so perfect and sets up the entire series. The whole show
hmm
is just built on that, and they do a fantastic job in the first episode of getting that ready to go.
I agree. Yeah, that's why it's a 5 for me too. You really feel like they've known each other forever. For visuals and direction, I gave it a 5.
I give it a 4, but this is more your realm, so feel free to tell us why.
Um, I really do think it's fits all the things. Like, I really like it when Dean first breaks into Sam's house. It's dark. You don't see who it is. Like, we've already seen Sam, but we don't know who the adult actor is for Dean yet. Like, we haven't seen
Mhm.
them. So
Yeah.
when Sam says Dean, and then you immediately learn his character because Sam's like, "What are you doing here?" And then he says, "I'm looking for a beer." And it's just like, "Well, you just broke into your brother's house, so really, why are you here?"
Mhm.
Type of thing. I really like the ending when the ghost Constance gets like pulled into like the portal with the skull and the fire and all this. I was just like, that's kind of ridiculous, but it's fun.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um, yeah. So I was like, this. They went all out for the pilot, and that's what you're supposed to do for a pilot. So
Yeah. Mhm.
it got a 5 from me. Emotional impact, I gave it a 4.
I gave it a 5.
Oh, why?
Yeah, I thought it's perfect. Again, it goes back to the characters and them setting it all up and makes it feel so real and so grounded. And then really at the end when Sam's like, "Hey," it's like a happy ending. Sam gets to go live his life. He got back in time for his interview. Everything's going great. His like girlfriend's in the shower and he's
Mm-hmm.
like, he's just excited. Like he's just like, "Man, they're back." And he goes lays in bed and you're like, happy ending. And then it just
Mm-hmm.
fucking gut punches you with the same like drips of blood, the exact same thing. It's just like, oh, it's so brutal, but it's
Mm-hmm.
so good. And at the very end, when they're like, they close the other shot of them like closing the trunk,
Mm-hmm.
and like I'm just like, oh, that just gets you right there. And it's like I want to watch the rest of this series now. Like it's just so
Yeah.
good and emotionally like, oh, good.
It is. It is good. I don't You're making me reconsider. I'm gonna stand by my 4.
Yeah,
But
not quite there, but yeah, I get you
but yeah, I agree with everything you said, but I just don't feel as emotional about it.
for sure. And this will come up in the next question too.
Yeah, rewatchability. I gave it a 3.
I gave it a 5 because like this show, like watching the pilot again, got me excited for this whole podcast, for this whole everything. I'm just like, oh,
Mhm.
I love this show. So I don't know if it's just because like it brings back the memories of the rest of the season too for me, or
Mhm.
the rest of the series for me. But it's just one of those things where like rewatching the first one, I'm just like, oh, I love it. I would watch it again.
Yeah. I mean,
It just hooks me
I
really well.
had a really fun time rewatching it.
Mhm.
It's just again not one of those where I would be like, yeah,
Yeah,
we're
for
watching it
sure,
again.
for sure.
And then Salt and Sass, I gave it a 4.
And I give it a 5 because again, I might have a little bit of bias towards the pilot in general, as I just see it really well. But, like,
Mhm.
I think it sets up a lot of recurring things throughout the rest of the series. Like,
Mhm.
just constantly these, like, witty, one-liners back and forth at each other, like, the constant interaction where they're, like, the bitch one where they're, like,
Oh.
jerk bitch or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, that's, like, a recurring thing, and it's just so brotherly, and it's like, oh, I just love it. It's just so good.
And the driver picks the music, shotgun shuts his cake hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, all of those kind of things, I'm just like, "Oh, it just sets up the dynamic perfectly," and I love it.
I think what took this down for me is there wasn't really many like tropes involved. Like there was great banter, we have our iconic lines, but like they haven't established their like the reoccurring themes yet or like tropes to look out for. I think that's why
Mhm.
I put it down a little bit.
Yeah.
So my average score is just a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, mine was a 4.43 out of 5, so a little bit higher, almost 4.5.
Yeah, and our combined score is a 4.21. So,
Yeah, which I think is fair. I think these are fair scores for the first episode. I'm excited to see if there's any episodes that dip even further down because, like, I
mhm,
think we were pretty conservative on our first ones. We were like, lots of threes, lots of fours, some bunch of fives thrown in there too. Like, nothing low, right? But I'm
mhm.
wondering, there might be some episodes where we're just like ones.
I'm
I'm curious to see if any of
sure.
those come up.
I would say overall, though, we would recommend the pilot. Like,
Yeah,
definitely watch it.
yeah,
Maybe skip
for sure.
episode 2. Maybe not.
Yeah, that one, I think you can watch it.
Um,
again, it sets up some things. That's good.
yeah. Do you have anything else to add overall?
Mm-mm. Nope.
All right.
I think we covered it all pretty well.
We did. Um, and again, we do want everybody's feedback on our formatting.
Hmm.
We're playing around with it, though I really liked this one.
Yeah, I think this
Um,
one was really good. So let us know what you
yeah.
think. If you like it, let us know. Email us, DM us, however you can get a hold of us. Please just
Mhm.
let us know what you think.
If
Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Tell us if we're doing everything perfectly. That's fine too. We'll take
um,
that ego boost. That's fine.
right. And if you think we should add another category to our episode rating, like go for it. If one's not need like yeah, tell us any and all opinions.
Yeah.
We're here. Our feelings won't be hurt.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So with all that said, that brings us to the end of season 1, episode 2, the Wendigo. Thank you all for joining us this week. Next week we are headed out to the lake to see what's going on there. And don't forget, whenever you're ready, see you in the archives.